Hello, my crafty friends. It's Marie from Marie's Vermont Creations, and today I'm making some cards using the Simon Says Stamp February 2020 card kit called Window Frames. So I am taking the heart frame and I am inking that up with Versamark ink, and I am stamping it down on one of the light pink pattern papers. And so I'm just checking to see if I got a good impression. I'm going to ink it up again just to make sure, and I did use my anti-static powder tool on the paper before I am stamping this down. So then once I get that done, I'm going to coat it with the gilded embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, which is gold. And then I'm going to heat set that until it's smooth and melted. And then once I have that all done and it's cool, I'm going to take the trio die that came in the card kit as well. I'm going to line it up and tack it down with some tape and run that through my die cutting machine. So once you do that, what you're left with is the little windows. So it's a really cool die, and for this card I'm going to use the shaker element that came in the kit. You get one of them from MFT, so I need to order some more because these are really fun cards. What I did find is that some of these stamps are a little bit wobbly, so you have to line them up just right when you're stamping them down. So I can't remember who had the tip, but to kind of do the die cutting of the frame out of a scrap piece of cardstock to use as a template so that you know where to line up your stamp, and that works really well. So that's just a little hint for you to make this a little easier, because some of the sides of these stamps are really thin, so it makes it harder to get it into the shape of a square and not be a little bit wonky. So you can use those squares for another card if you wanted. So here's that shaker element. So I'm going to take some of the 1/8 inch score tape, which also came in the kit, and I'm going to run it all around the perimeter of my cutouts. And then I'm going to peel off the backing, and I'm going to place in the plastic pouch. And then also in the kit came these great heart embellishments. So first I'm going to remember that I need to put my sentiment in before I do the pouch, because I honestly almost did that. Actually, now that I remember when I made this, I was like, oh yeah, wait, you're not going to be able to stamp that down with a hard piece of plastic in there. So I stamped that down, and I also coated that with the gilded embossing powder. So now I'm going to take off my backing to that adhesive and get this pressed down, and just pressing all over to make sure that it is all stuck down everywhere. And now I'm going to fill each of these with the little hearts. I lied. I'm going to put some double-sided adhesive on there first, because once you get your hearts in there, you don't really want to be pulling off your double-sided tape, because learn from me, once I started doing, if I filled them first and then pulled off the backing, I get the gut, whatever guts I'm using for a shaker card everywhere. They're stuck in the glue. So it's easier to take off the backing first and then put in your elements. So we're going to do that. Get them all filled a little, try to keep them as even as possible. You get quite a few in this pack, so you don't have to worry about running out. I used them on 2 of the 3 cards that I made, and I still have a ton left. And I got this tip from Cassie Trask, and I don't know why I didn't think of it. Adhering down another piece of acetate to the back of your shaker so that it's sealed, but you can get your tape on and line it up to whatever your base is without using like another piece of cardstock that you can't see through. It's a brilliant idea. I don't know why I didn't think of it before. So I just used some double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to get this to a card base, which came in the kit, this paper, the cream colored, and there's that card finished. So for my next card, I cut out from the red cardstock that came in the kit, the frame. I just did it on a scrap piece, and I'm actually taking the squares that came, and I'm stamping the Love You and Versamark ink, and I'm going to coat this with alabaster white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, and I'm going to heat set those, and I'm going to do that to all 3 of them. I'm going to do the exact same thing, get them all melted. Yeah, words are hard. With my heat tool, I am going to put some foam tape on the back of them. I actually did double layers on there so that they're quite prominent. And then I took my favorite of the pattern paper from this pack that came in the kit, and I'm going to adhere it down to a red card base. And then I am going to kind of offset these 3 Love You squares onto my panel. I do have to readjust them a couple of times because I wasn't not quite sure. I put one down a little too far and that wasn't enough room. So I just hadn't pressed them down really firmly. So I was able to pick it up and adjust it right there and press them down. And then I'm going to take some of those heart embellishments and just take my art glitter glue and put, I think I did 5 or 6 of them. I'm sure I did an odd number because that's what everyone tells you should do. It's pleasing to the eye. So we're just going to get those adhered. I am using my Quick Stick, I think it's called. I don't love this one, but it's what I have on hand, and it does make for picking up some of these things and setting them down into your glue a little bit easier. So we're going to get those adhered, and then that is going to finish off this card. Now, before I would send it, I would take a white piece of cardstock and put it on the inside so I could write a message, or you could take a white Jelly Roll pen and write your message, or a metallic pen if you want to leave it red to write your message to your recipient on that. So there's that card. Now for this card, I have taken and cut out my frame from some watercolor cardstock. This is just some Canson watercolor. And now I'm lining up the balloons on the outside of that frame, and I just have some washi tape on the back holding my squares in place so that they will hold, because I want to do some ink blending over them and I want all pieces to be covered. So I've used my anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to ink this up with Versamark ink, and I'm going to get this stamped down a couple of times because it's on watercolor paper and it's a little bit textured, and I have those cutouts on it, so I want to make sure that I have that, you know, well inked up and pressed down onto my paper. And then I am going to coat this with some Alabaster white embossing powder from Brutus Monroe and get that heat set with my heat tool. And so my thought for this card was to do a birthday card with some rainbows, and I wanted to do some ink resist, you know, have the embossing powder resist the ink that I'm going to put down. Of course, as you see, I make a hot mess of it. Not sure why I even try with the coffee filter because I still make a mess, but we'll get that cleaned up. And then I'm going to take my mini Distress Inks cubes in the just rainbow order, and I'm going to drag them across my paper. So I've got a red and an orange, and I'm going to do yellow, green, blue, and purple, I believe. Not sure if I was able to fit pink in there. And then I'm going to take my water brush and just run it across to kind of smooth these out to get a more even look for it, because it's a little splotchy right now when I'm putting them down. So this way the water will even those out, and I'm going to let that dry before I move on. Now my next step I would have done differently if I had been thinking clearly. Do as I say, not as I do. I would take and adhere the squares to your paper now. I don't know what I was thinking. I got excited and put down my acetate to the back. I pulled out these squares, put the acetate down. What I would do is put adhesive on the back of these squares, place my panel back down, push the little squares onto the panel that is going to be my card base, so then they're lined up where they need to be. I went about it a little bit the hard way, so I am going to glue down a piece of acetate, and then I am going to put on a double layer of foam tape onto this back panel all around so that it's even. So I found a way to get the squares down, but like I said, I did it the hard way. So then I'm going to take the happy birthday sentiment, and I'm going to put it on one of the squares in my mini Misty, and I'm going to ink that up with Gina K amalgam ink, and I'm going to stamp that down a couple of times to get a good impression for the happy birthday. And then once I have that done, I've got the foam tape all over, and I'm going to peel off the backing, and I'm going to put down, just lining it up to kind of see where I want all of those to make sure that I have it correct. I will put down my shaker bits, which are just some little clear embellishments that I got at Walmart, a little container. I think it's like $4 for this whole big tub of them. Peel off all the backing off of my foam tape, and then I'm going to carefully try to line this up. And this would have been much easier if I had done it the correct way, but anyway, it worked out in the end. So I'm going to get that down, and then so those are my 3 card samples for the card kit from Simon Says Stamp for this month. I hope you'd enjoy them, and as always, I hope that you have a great day.